Well, hello again to everyone and welcome back to the channel. I'm Charles Nathan, your friendly guide helping you to navigate the shadowy swamp that is the modern British state. With the war in Iran quite clearly dominating headlines throughout the world, as it doubtless should, now's a great opportunity to have a quick look at the work of the International Relations and Defence Committee, which met earlier this week. Now, this is a House of Lords committee, so the levels of pomposity can be quite high. You might want to open a window while you're watching this video. Having said that, the subject matter could not be more pertinent, as it is discussing the UK's future relationship with the United States. Now, this has been under scrutiny for some time, and the committee was doing this work anyway when the war started, so they managed to shoehorn in a quick extra session. And it's worth listening to some of the people like Lord MacDonald, who used to be a permanent Undersecretary for the Foreign and Commonwealth Office, giving his take on what he's seen of the situation. It's instructive to see the old globalist, one-size-fits-all post-war liberal order, which is slowly and with increasing speed dying out, slowly begin to understand exactly what's going on in the world and realise that no matter what they might think of the situation, there's nothing they can do to prevent it. The changes are already happening under their feet. The tectonic plates have already shifted and they've got to just stand on the land as it's moving. So here's Lord MacDonald just giving his take on a couple of issues.
Point is that from what I can see in Iran, the country that is achieving its objectives is Israel. Netanyahu has been personally obsessed by Iran and the Iranian threat all his life. When I was ambassador, he was finance minister. I did not have much to do with him, but we talked about Iran. He had a bust of Churchill in his office, and this was his model, that in the 30s, Churchill was the only one to see the threat of Nazi Germany, and he similarly, at the beginning of this century, saw the threat from Iran. What is happening now, I think, is the culmination of a lifetime plan. Last two thoughts. One is that it might work. There's a lot of doomy prognostication about what is happening in Iran, but I think there's a possibility that Israel and the United States may achieve their objectives, and I think the committee should consider that. And last is that it's never going to go back to what it was. The relationship with the United States has been changing over a long time. Trump has catalyzed, has galvanized things, and accelerated trends which were already there. So a very familiar British policy position is to outweight a problem in the hope that it will go away and we can resume a more familiar way of doing things. In this case, I think that will not happen, both because of long-term trends and because of the damage that this president is doing to important institutions.
So there we have Lord MacDonald at least understanding that disruptors like Trump, and perhaps you could say Reagan back in the day, are not actually the cause of many of these big changes and disruptions that are going on. They are merely symptoms. They're the outward expression of currents that have been running strong and deep for a long time, which have been ignored by, ironically, people like Lord MacDonald. It doesn't take him long to revert to type, though, and he soon starts complaining about the institutions that Trump has allegedly damaged. Now, he didn't name them, but I'm pretty sure he's talking about the United Nations. And my only gripe about that is that Trump actually left the United Nations standing, where he could have dropped a couple of bombs on that and he would have done the world a great favour. Seriously, since its inception, what has the United Nations actually achieved? What has it actually done to make the world a better and safer place? Surely the UN was designed to stop things like this happening, to stop nations like Iran gaining leverage over the region and eventually nuclear weapons. And what have they done about it? Nothing of any use. So it's been left for the Americans to clear up once again, and everyone's going to slag them off as usual. We can see this complete lack of understanding on the part of MacDonald and everyone else sat in that room, when he eventually has to go back to the sacred cow and the mirage of international law. Perhaps an even bigger myth than the omnipotence of the United Nations. So here he is talking about that.
Where do you think it leaves the status of international law, particularly because the United Kingdom for many years has been seen as the guardian of upholding international law, the institutions of international law, including the international courts? And do you believe, and I've got a view on this as well, that this is just limited to one administration, i.e. President Trump's second administration, and that normal service will be resumed? But I'm mindful, Lord MacDonald, you did say that this is a game changer and this will see a new precedent being set. So perhaps I could come to you.
Yeah. I think this is a watershed, but this particular president has a lesser attachment to international law than any predecessor, and I would go so far as to say any imaginable successor. So there is a particularly acute problem for the next 3 years. International law is quite a slippy thing. In lots of parts of the world, people are very mindful that the countries that crafted international law and international institutions were rather few. And it's a British construct, or a co-designed by Britain construct that we are defending so assiduously. So not everybody is as attached to the current system as we are, but we are a country of law. It explains a lot, if not everything we do on the international stage. The whole Chagos Agreement, for example, makes sense only because we are abiding strictly by our interpretation of international law. But with an administration that, if you like, has gone rogue, this is a very strong signal around the whole system. So even if the problem is only 3 years, it's a very big problem for that time.
International law is a concept that only works if everyone believes in it and everyone at least does their best to abide by it. But when there are massive human rights abusers like Russia and China sat on the UN's Permanent Security Council, what kind of message does that send to nations like Iran? Well, it sends them messages that they can at least pretend to do a deal and then carry on doing whatever they want to, and no one's going to do anything about it. And until now, they've been pretty much right, haven't they? The idea of international law is at best an expedient myth which saves weak Western countries like us having to make the difficult decisions and face up to the world as it actually is and not as we would like it to be. And you can see in some of these exchanges how our insufferably pompous and ageing establishment deep down knows the truth. So here's Lord MacDonald again, just summing up, and he says, as they say, the quiet part out loud.
Building on what Laurel just said, I'd concentrate on security. The Americans will always be our friends and allies, but we're getting the message. We know we have to do more to help ourselves, so that we are going to get on, even though, as Professor Friedman says, this will be a very long project. We're going to make a start, and we're going to make that start with our European neighbours. That we, with our neighbourhood, need to do more about European security.
Our desiccated establishment is slowly waking up to the reality that the world they've helped to build is poor, mean-spirited, timid, weak, and in fact crumbling under the weight of its own hubris and inbuilt contradictions. The sooner this so-called liberal internationalist order dies off, the better, so that true civilizations can reassert themselves to be the guiding principles by which most people can live throughout the world. That's it for today. I hope that's been useful for you. Just giving a bit of an insight into how the establishment's looking at things, and it's kind of half understanding what's going on, but it's not quite getting it. But it doesn't matter, because they'll be gone soon, within the next 10 years or so. As always, please like, share, subscribe, comment, do all those cool things, because it does help to keep the channel growing, and it helps to keep free voices alive on the internet. Because always remember, our ignorance is their power. I'll see you all again soon. Bye bye for now.